Welcome to the Meetings Podcast, the meeting organizer's podcast source for what's new in the meetings and events industry. Meetings Podcast is a conversation with a variety of voices that looks at events, meetings, and media. Meetings Podcast is sponsored by IMEX America, America's worldwide exhibition for incentive travel, meetings, and events.
Hey, podcast listeners, this is Mike. Today's show is brought to you by IMEX America, of course, and I wanted to alert you to our new service called Podcasting for Events. We are doing a lot of it now, and it's been a lot of fun building shows for people around their event. So you'd have a podcast for your event, and it's as simple as that. We take care of all the technical and all the creative for you and make it work. All you got to do is set it all up with us. So thank you again for tuning in. Today we're talking to Janet Sperstad, and I want to apologize in advance. The audio on my computer did not work very well. It wouldn't switch over for some reason. I have no idea. And that sounds great after saying we're doing podcasting for events, but things happen sometimes, and there's sometimes that you can't get around it. And since this is my own little homegrown podcast, I want to apologize because it is my fault. I was just racing around for some client stuff, sat down, and I didn't want to stop her once I figured out that it wasn't working very well. So I hope, bear with me on this one. A great interview. Janet is passionate and wonderful and funny and great, and I hope you enjoy this podcast. And I will be back afterwards to fill in all the gaps. So thanks so much. Welcome back to the Meetings Podcast. This is Mike McCallum from Grass Shack Events and Media, and on today's show we have Janet Sperstad. Hi, Janet.
Hey, hi, Mike.
Nice to talk to you again with the recorder on. I'm going to read a quick bio about you, so people don't know who you are. Here it is. Your professional history reflects your lifelong vocation, driving excellence in meeting and event management, execution, and education. You've dedicated your career to defining competencies and career pathways that articulate meeting planning as a design discipline requiring skills in the social sciences, executive leadership, and the cognitive sciences. Her contributions are global in scope and rooted in over 25 years as a meeting professional and executive leader in the corporate and nonprofit sectors. Janet has been employed by Fortune 500 by a Fortune 500 company, a statewide association, and owned a professional event management firm. You currently lead the Madison College Meeting and Event Management Associate Degree Program, which you founded in 2002, and recently been selected as the Competency Model Champion for the U.S. Department of Labor. And you have done a lot of volunteer stuff. And
it's a kind way to put it, of not being able to say no.
Yeah, it's been a lot of stuff, and I'm not going to read it all off, but I'll put this all on the post.
Yeah.
I'll read everything about you later. And you were the recipient of the 2015 MPI Chairman's Award, as well as being named one of the top 30 CMP influencers by the Convention Industry Council. And in addition, you were the PCMA Achievement Educator Honoree and Industry Trendsetter in 2014, as well as the MPI International Planner of the Year for 2007 and 8. And you were also recognized by your excellence in teaching through the The-Biophilia-Hypothesis-Shearwater-Book Award in 2010 and the Madison College's Distinguished Teacher of the Year in 2005.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of cool stuff.
I feel blessed. I really do.
So, first I want to show you this person here.
Yeah.
For those of you listening to the audio podcast, I'm being attacked by my cat here. He's our favorite once, and I tried to lock him out, but he opened the door, which is pissing me off. Okay, let's start out with your favorite quote.
Oh, that's so easy because it's be the change you want to see in the world. And, I work for a public institution, open enrollment university, and I love it. We accept everyone. We don't ask them what their needs are. We just say, how can we help you? and we're, in a world that is so much about us versus them. I walk in a door every day that just says, "How can I help you?" And man, it feels good. So it's a quote that really drives how I think and how I feel every day, because I am a mission-driven public servant, and I take it on the chin many days. It's hard. There are days I go home bedraggled, and then there's days that I see the most joyous things, because people are the most amazing thing in this world.
That's awesome. Really awesome. It is, isn't they say that the happiest people are the people that are serving, basically. Who said that?
Yeah. No, it actually is the neuroscience of it. You really do. People don't give to help others. They give to make themselves feel better. And there's neuroscience behind it.
Oh, speaking of neuroscience, do you want to tell the Gosling story?
The what?
Gosling story?
No. Yeah, you have not forgotten that, have you?
No, because it was like, I didn't even know you. I just met you. So that was the first time I met you. And then we went,
You're like,
this is the best story ever. I mean, just shorten it up. So you go, tell me. That's such a great story.
Yeah, well, it's our brain is driven to do two things at a fifth of a second in our life all the time, right? A fifth of a second we're talking, and that's to run or reward. So we look for danger, we look for reward. And I was up in my cabin, and we feed birds. I'm an avid bird watcher, and we feed all the birds. As my wife says, all species welcome. And we got to really get familiar with some of the waterfowl that come around, because they came back every year and they brought their little babies. So one came by and babies were there, and all of a sudden much commotion on the water, and here there was one baby gone. And this was early in the morning in my pajamas, and the next thing I know, I'm standing in the water in my pajamas with a shovel. And my brain knew danger before I did, and those were my friends. We take personal personas and put it onto objects to have a closer relationship with them. And so I did, and I named this one waterfowl Cinnamon and her babies. And so I just ran in and put the shovel in the water and lifted it up and pulled up the baby, and there was a snapping turtle hanging on to the foot, and I saved it. Ta-da! And then my wife came out and looked at me in my pajamas in the water with a shovel, saying, "What are you doing?" It was like, yeah. Well, let's get some coffee and I'll tell you about it.
So great. So that was a good way of speaking at an event. Like, I mean, you really captivated me. I was like, what a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, stories work. And one of the cool things about this is, 93% of communication is nonverbal. So being able to see someone's face, really important. People are getting more information from not listening to me, but seeing my face than hearing the words. So it really is. It's so critical. And stories, we put it first person. I mean, I could go on and on. I learned so much about my neuroscience. It was an incredible experience. And I'm not a neuroscientist, but 3 years I studied this in depth with some of the world leaders, and it was awesome. It was such a luxury. It was nice being a student instead of being a teacher.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so how'd you get into this whole business? What path led you to?
It's I was just thinking of this the other day, thinking, I hope I'm the second generation of being the last generation of being the people who fell into this industry, right? I'm a teacher now, and I teach event management, and this is now a profession of choice rather than falling into it. And so that's just what I did. I knew somebody, I have a degree in criminal justice. I was a probation and parole officer, and all I knew is I did not want to do it. I started profiling my family and friends. Yeah, that's a buzzkill right there, right? So I wanted to get out, and I knew someone who was in the association world and wanted my help at a registration desk. And I said, yeah, if you'll pay me. So it just snowballed, and And I was like, what is this? What are you doing? This is really fun. This is really great. I get to see people. It's really interactive. It's, so diverse. And so here it is. So I don't even know how many years later, still in it and now teaching it.
It's so interesting because as you said that, I always ask people on this podcast, and I've done like 500 podcasts now. And it's like I've asked, and they're all media professionals, and almost all of them have fallen into it.
Yeah.
And recently, the last couple of years, like you're saying, a lot of people are going over into school and learning. Right?
Yeah.
It is such. I mean, I fell into it. I just happened to have a passport at the time. And my roommate was in the event business and said, "Do you have a passport? I need help on this event." And I'm all, "Yeah, I'll go." So we went to Korea.
Cool.
Fell into it.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest challenge for you?
In life today?
Well, either way. I mean, I was thinking about what you encountered getting into the business. What was the biggest challenge? Business is much more difficult. Right?
I think the one thing that still I struggle with is articulating what it is event management is. And I have years of experience around it, right? I mean, from doing the work for over 20 some years to now teaching, and every day I practice what it is we do. And my vocation, and I call it a vocation, has been to really lift up our profession and separate it from hospitality, that we are a design discipline. And so we still lack so much around having a career pathway, having a knowledge pathway, really having some things in there. Our industry is flooded with certifications, certificates. I'm very happy to say that we have more and more degrees in event management. But if you look underneath the hood, they're still populated inside with hospitality. So things that really are, it's things that we need more definition around what it is we do with benchmarks, with skills, knowledge, paths, salaries, job descriptions, things that are really defining a profession. And that's my biggest challenge. Even I worked with the U.S. Department of Labor last year and really getting our own sector. And it took me 18 months to convince them that, yes, we're our own, because they kept on saying, well, aren't meetings in hotels? Why can't you just be hotels? And right, I mean, it was a very long learning process. But then there was a tipping point and they're like, oh my God, you're completely different. And then it just all fell like dominoes. And so like, give us more stuff, and so it was, but it took that time, and it shouldn't take that long. We shouldn't have to convince people that this is a career, that this is a job, and so if somebody wants to go and benchmark their skills and salary and their HR does, where do they go? What do they do? How do they find this? Mm-hmm. So that's our hardest story, and that's our hardest thing. And that's been my biggest challenge, to define that.
Yeah, and it's great that you're taking it from, because you're actually starting people off on that trail at college, and now you're continuing on with the government. That's fantastic. I know my own situations of always doing work and then saying, well, the government numbers say, what things should cost is totally off. And
yeah.
Where are those numbers coming from? And they didn't know.
Yeah.
It was just always the procurement. I was always dealing with, like, trying to explain how different venues are different.
Right. Well, and you're a small business, right? And so much of the work of event management is done by women. Women-owned businesses trying to get here in the U.S., women-owned businesses certification. Like, they can't right now to be in event management. It's such a hard battle. What? This is sustaining jobs. This is, so we got a long road ahead of us, but that's going to be my thing that I continue to push. And every time I have an opportunity to be a servant leader in our industry, I'm going to keep pushing that voice and saying, how are we helping, really solidify our jobs, our profession, our careers? It's just not the person doing the work, but it's also the businesses that are employing these people doing it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's like larger than the auto industry. I mean,
you're fading in and out for me. I'm sorry.
Am I? I'm sorry. Oh, that's not good.
That's right.
Can you hear me now?
Is your cat sitting on the audio?
He probably. something, knowing him.
Yeah. Oh, much better. Thank you.
All right. All right. So, is there a moment that when you got into the business that you knew was the right decision, or was there a certain moment, or has it happened yet, or wow, this is the
I think as an event planner, I was very lucky. I learned under the tutelage of 4 people who founded MPI. There were 4 people from Wisconsin who started MPI. There was like 8 around the U.S., and 4 of them were here in Wisconsin. And I learned underneath their tutelage. So I learned early on some of the opportunities and the careers and the skills and the knowledge. Shifting from event management to a teacher, I just came into the college and I guest spoke, right? And then I became an adjunct faculty because they needed someone to teach this meeting planning class. What is this? And hey, will you do it? And so I said, yeah. And for me, that was a defining moment. I remember walking into my building, looking at the logo of the college, and I just knew this is what I was supposed to do. And I thought, someday I'm going to work here. Now, there are no degrees in event management. I wasn't looking to build a degree. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to share the knowledge, and I knew I was one of the people that had the collective knowledge of all the skills from doing it. I worked in a diverse career field, and I also did a lot of training out in the industry. So I knew my next step was to go off and do this work. And so it was 2 years later that all of a sudden, we worked on this degree. But that was a defining moment. And I remember, I'll always look at this logo and be like, yep, I remember the day I said, I'm going to work here. And I didn't know how. But my whole life, I've had a theme and a mantra to myself, and that was follow the yeses. Follow the yeses. And don't worry about the outcomes. Don't think about an outcome. Because once you follow an outcome, you narrow opportunities. And all I want to do is create opportunities for myself and follow the yeses. And it's been a great ride. I love it. I love where I work. It's so many cool people here.
Very cool. Very cool. It's a great story too. Do you want to tell us exactly what you do at the college, or day life? What do you do there?
I do 2 things. I teach, and then I hand out Kleenexes when students cry.
In your class?
Yeah, let's just say.
Get rid of as many of those questions as you can in your class.
I'm a hard teacher. Probation and parole, yeah, their problems are not mine. And planning is really hard work. It's about doing. It's not, So, so I teach event management, and I also direct the program, which means I market, fundraise, advise, all those things. It's everything. It's, amalgamation of many, many things. And I teach. I'm still in the classroom. So where I'm at is we don't have any TAs. Students get me directly. And so I don't know, this semester I think I see 75 students. So it's, we have the most meeting planning education in the United States.
Yeah.
So what I tell people is we are an inch wide and a mile deep. So instead of taking a wide swath around meetings and events, we take some subjects and really drill down. We have a class just on registration. And actually, Coburn Ball helped us develop it and really keep it fresh with some of the technology and tools. We have a class just on exhibition management that we work with IEEE on. So we really dive deep because in planning, you never know where you're going to get your job. Yeah. And it's diverse, but it's all the same. So we really make sure our students walk out with a core body of knowledge, and about 70% of the CMP competencies are embedded in our degree. When we built it, we did it that way. So we're constantly keeping it fresh and it's relevant. About 40% of my students already have a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
So we're a 2-year college, and what people think a 2-year college is just a small tech college. We serve 40,000 students a year. We have 3,000 employees, and many of our students come here and transfer to bachelor's, and we also have many come from bachelor's for that specialized body of knowledge, and that's what they do here. So a very small population of people who have never had a degree or experience in higher ed come into our world of event management in our degree.
And so a lot of returning students, that's it?
Yeah.
People are changing,
Totally. We have, and mostly people I see from the marketing field. Many bachelors in communication, marketing, come in and get a dual degree in marketing and events, and obviously hospitality events, because, it's, there's some great synergies and jobs that are around that as well in the hotel side.
Yeah, and in general, with the corporate side, I know I work with lots of marketing people, companies don't reach people, and the marketing side take over the events and meetings.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the future? Where do you see it evolving? Where you're working? How do you see it going?
Well,
Or are you there?
I have some frustration with our industry, and I have some great hope for our industry. I have frustration in that many of the voices and trends that are being driven in our industry are by suppliers, people who are providing the products and services, and are not the ones that are driving the work. So that's a distraction to moving our profession forward, because we're driven by what their perception is from the outside in, not the people who've done the work and sharing it from the inside out. So I get a little frustrated with that, and I think it holds us back as a profession. And then I have great hope. And so, we have Rude here on this call, and Rude's been doing awesome work. I've been admiring it for years. We have meeting architecture out there. We're moving and advancing into new realms, beyond logistics, beyond measuring hotels. Meetings are not about creating business for other businesses. It's about doing the work for that organization and sharing information and moving hearts and minds of those attendees. So it's there's been movement around that, and then also just some things that I think we give a lot of bandwidth to. And there's only so much attention in the world in a day. And right now, the loudest voices and the most voices come from suppliers who are on the outside looking in. Not that they're not valued, not that they don't help us, but it's just a different perspective, and that other voice is small.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. They're probably the people that are, looking for work, basically, do these trend things and write these articles about stuff to get people to buy the business. People actually in the business are actually doing the work. They don't have time to be really writing about trends.
Yeah, and that's, a lot of it is the people doing the work are so busy doing the work, they don't have time to share, populate this information, write articles, write books. They're doing the work. And then the other side is, the beauty of our industry is we're diverse, multifaceted. So we can pull from a lot of different areas and expertise, and so those expertise help us advance our knowledge, but there's still the voice of doing the work. And it's just not about all products and services and logistics.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting business. I know people have said to me, I always say I'm like a general contractor for a meeting, so I'm like pulling in the pieces that need to be built, house needs to be built, the meeting needs to be built, so I'm trying to pull in the best people to have the best outcomes in the meeting. But that doesn't have anything on the book from my brain, a little tiny brain and big noggin.
Hey, we all the same size brain. That's a 3-pound noggin you got, and so do I.
The still weighs more on mine. All right, so let me ask you a couple questions. Take me through a bit. Do you have any morning rituals, food, exercise, regular reading on the web, social media stuff? I'm asking these questions about you, quite a few of them, just to kind of people can gleam off of successful people, if they're listening.
Yeah. rituals are so important, and I don't have any.
You
I'm not my ritual is get up, brush my teeth, make my coffee. Today it was shoveling the snow. I'm not a routine person, and rituals, I go swimming at one of our local YMCA's, and I'll do it in the morning, I'll do it in the afternoon, I'll do it in the evening, I'll do it, routines aren't that important to me, but construct is. But I would say the only routine I have is I've learned after understanding the brain more, prioritizing is the hardest thing our brain does. So every morning when I get to work, I write my to-do list, and I don't worry about putting it in order. I just write it all down, so I brain dump. And then when my brain is fresh, I number it, sequence it, because we give numbers priority. So I always want to be like, okay, if brain is fresh, I'm fresh. What's the priorities that I have to do so I don't get distracted? Because my job is so diverse that a luxury is teaching. That's luxury. That's really contained. But I would say the only ritual is probably that.
Interesting. And do you have any media sites, news sites that you like?
It's I would say, I'm really a birth of this industry, and so I really use my filters of MPI, PCMA, IEEE, the industry organizations that are out there bringing in a lot of conversation. I use those filters a lot, probably the most. And then our trade rags out there, successful meetings, conventions, meetings, and that, all those, those I'm always circling around. And then I have my neuroscience stuff that I keep fresh on and watch. But I would say those things.
Have you ever had a nickname?
Yes.
What was it, and why would they say that?
Well, I'd say the nickname was Spurs. And that was a family name. I'm the youngest of 4, and so I grew up in a small town, and so it was always, Spurs 1, 2, 3, 4. So it was always just that.
The Spurs. Makes sense. It's a good one. What did you want to be as a kid?
What
What did you want to be as a kid?
Cowgirl.
Yeah?
You bet I did. I had a little outfit. I had little red rubber band guns. I had a hat. I had everything, and I wore it every day. Like, every day. And when I got washed, I sat by the washer.
Oh, funny.
So,
where is it? You still have it?
I did. My mom kept it for me, and she gave it to me years ago, and my wife had it framed for me. There's blood stains on it. The knees are ripped out. But I wanted to be a cowgirl. That was my thing.
Awesome. And how about now? You ride horses and stuff? Do you do anything like that?
What's that?
You ride horses or anything now? Or are you
No. Ride a bike.
Ride a bike. What book do you give others?
It's funny, this is the book I'm reading right now. The-Biophilia-Hypothesis.
Wow.
Isn't that sexy? It's such a romance novel. But it's really, my background is in social science. Neuroscience not only taught me a lot about the brain, but it taught me that I can learn hard science. Girls can learn hard science. I did it. You bet I cried every Sunday night after our calls, and I was just, it was so hard for me. And now I get science. I get jazzed by science. I read earth science books. I read, earth science is probably my most interesting aspect. And the biophilia hypothesis is really around, we have an innate connection to nature. And I really think that as humans, and bringing in our perspective of meetings and events, if we created the construct of nature as we could in our events, people would have a better experience. Paul Salinger is a good friend of mine, and him and I jam often and just daydream together. And we said, wouldn't it be great if when people leave a meeting, they feel better than when they came? They felt more refreshed, more rejuvenated. They weren't exhausted. They didn't feel like they had a million to-do lists. So I really think biophilia, I really think, and architects and engineers get this. That's how they design cities. It's how they design buildings. And I think there's some real potential for us. So I've been reading this book, and it turns out science is sexy, and it's not that hard. But for girls, we have barriers, and there really are stigmas, and there are biases. So I'm reading this book, and while it's not the most interesting, there's some really amazing facts about it that I really think that we can apply to our industry.
Very much so. Paul lived right down the street from me. You and I have been friends for a long time.
Oh, I lost you. What was that?
Oh, I said Paul lives down the street from me, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, we've been friends a long time. We used to work together.
Oh, nice. Tell him to read this book with me, and let's do a little book club.
So what do you listen to any podcasts?
Yes, I do. All on French wine.
That's good. And
when I turned 50, I said to my wife, I'm going to drink my way through France. So I've been actually really studying French wines a lot, and I've been listening to some cool podcasts.
Nice. What and is it called French Wine Podcast? Is there one that you can recommend?
There's so many out there. I really, again, sort of being interested in the earth sciences, I listen to ones about the terroir, the limestone, the clay, not necessarily the taste, of jammy and soft, and I'll follow the price of wine. I'm more interested in why those crops grow there, and how do they, from the soil to glass transfer. Now you can see I'm actually a big geek. My wife calls me a geek all the time. Actually, she calls me a nerd.
That's great. So do you listen to music at work at all?
I do. I work this is a huge room I'm in. There's probably 25 other faculty. It's a cubicle. I'm lucky I get a window, but I often listen to headsets just to bring my attention in and my focus in. And I listen to a variety of things. I would say primarily, I actually make my students give me playlists just to stay relevant and fresh, because there could be a big age difference, between me and some of my students, and I want to know what's happening. But what I don't like is probably rap, hip hop, but I like classic vinyl, blues. Love the 70s. Oh my God, I'm a product of the 70s. I loved it. So I'd say I listen probably the 70s and some of the classic rock. The most classic vinyl, I think, on Siri is what I listen to a lot.
And so you listen to Pandora or Spotify?
Pandora is what I usually grab, and I'll grab it and put it into the classroom too before students come in. Okay, if you could, let's shoot ahead here. Oh wait, so do you have any favorite documentaries or movies you've seen recently? Oh, Spector! I love James Bond. Love. He's that's been my favorite that I've seen so far.
Very cool. All right, so let's get, because we're going on some time here, let's get going to the last couple of questions. So what's the best advice you ever received?
My mom telling me you can do anything you put your mind to. And then the other best piece of advice is, it's nice to be nice, so be nice. And that also came from my mom. And I think those two things really helped me. And gave me the confidence to sort of go off, and I don't ask for permission to do things. You can ask my boss that. He'll say, yes, she does not. But I'm really good at asking for forgiveness. But I'm really thoughtful and kind. And that's really important, especially being a teacher. It's hard being a student. It was very humbling going back and learning my master's. Really humbling. So I'd say those two things.
What is working for you right now? Do you have a new app or vitamin or exercise program, work hat time saver? Do you have something new that you're using that's really handy?
Saying the word no.
Good one.
Yeah, I'm very blessed and I'm very grateful for all the things that happen in my life. And I have come to realize I can't do everything. And when I try, I drop a lot of stuff. So if it's anything, I've been saying no more. And I just let it go.
Yeah. What's your favorite industry event you attend, and why is it? So you had to pick one to go to. Which one would you go?
I would anyone that I don't speak at, and I don't want to sound cavalier, and I don't want to sound like that's not cool, right? But when I don't speak, I can be fully there and fully participate, and which also means then some of the funding. Because I'm an academic, I'm a teacher, and here in the state of Wisconsin, our budgets were slashed, so very little money is really put towards professional development. So I have to speak often to be able to get some funding to go. So when I don't speak, it means I have some funding and I can just totally be there. But probably two that I often put on my wish list to always go is IMEX and PCMA convening leaders. Kelly PC at PCMA convening leaders just always knocks it out of the ballpark. They have such cool content. They're, I'm always just like a sponge there. I love it. I come back feeling really cool, really great, feel really refreshed as a brain. And then IMEX is just fun because I get to see a lot of my pals, and they do so much with future leaders and really fun things with students, which is so much a part of what I care about. So I think those two are my favorite two.
Did you go to Vancouver recently?
I did not. It was the first week of school, so I had to make sure my students saw me and loved me.
I didn't go there, and it was close to me too. So I didn't. As we talked about trends earlier, what do you think? The newest trend that you're excited about in the industry?
It's interesting. So talking about convening leaders, some of the trends, we always have out of our big industry organizations, there's all these sort of post follow-up things that come out of it, these nuggets that were shared. And they talked about a couple trends, and one was, sensory, I'll say application, but like how I have to believe that Fitbit will be something about EventBit. There'll be something that really connects to people and their biorhythms. And one of them was talking about sensory, and if they're able to see if people are paying attention or not. And I thought, well, okay, that's a judgment call. Where do you think the best ideas come from? Is when someone daydreams. When they're screwing around and relaxed and having fun and just sort of jamming on ideas. And so I think just the reverse. Wouldn't that be great if they, hang out more? And, so I was like, how interesting that there's a judgment based on that paying attention and is like the thing you have to do. So I thought it was pretty interesting, some of those trends that I didn't really agree with. And I thought, we're following it because there's a profit to follow it. But you can track that data. Well,
right.
Data is only as good as it's used, and where it gets used is where meaning is. And guess what brings meaning? Getting people together to talk. So, but what would be interesting is to watch people's biorhythms on sleeping, eating, refueling, energizing. Like, when is their peak performance of the meeting? We always think, our brain is a battery, and mornings are best, right? Because we just woke up, and most of us sleep at night. But it'd be interesting. So some of those trends around the technology and how we sort of can learn more about what our attendees are really doing. But I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Very, very cool. Okay, last question.
Yeah.
If you, let's see. I have two last questions. Okay, if you woke up tomorrow morning and you could choose any profession and have the option to start somewhere, anywhere from scratch, what would you do?
Oh, I think I'd like to do something around science and invention to help disease, or to help humans survive in a really resource depleted, chaotic world that would help humans be happier and be healthier. So something around that.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah, I just finished reading the book The Martian, the Matt Damon movie that's out. That movie?
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen it yet.
Well, I like to read books when I see the movies come out, because I think, it must be a really good book to make a movie out of it. So I usually read the book before I see the movie.
Oh.
But that book kind of reminds me of the whole thing of the science. The guy was just so smart. And the movie isn't as, of course, as good as the book.
Yeah,
Think of you as like this kind of very fun person who's into science, but anyway, I don't know. I went off on a tangent.
No, that'd be great. Make food in another planet.
All right, Janet, thank you so much. Where can people get a hold of you when if they wanted to?
Get a hold of me, LinkedIn. Everything is J Sperstad. So Twitter @JSperstad. Email jsperstad@madisoncollege.edu. I try to keep it really simple, because then it's simple for me.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I'm always look forward to talking to you.
All right. Thank you. Peace, friend.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Okay, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to the show. Again, I apologize for that audio. Pretty bad, and this happens once in a while, and it had to happen around Janet. She is fantastic. Thank you for listening. Thank you to IMEX America for the sponsorship of the Meetings podcast, and again, check out that Podcasting for Events. That if you're interested in doing your own podcast, we'll be happy to produce it. They're all done. I won't be doing it here. We have actually audio engineers that take care of it, so it sounds perfect, and we take care of all the technical stuff around setting up your RSS feed and doing everything. So if you're interested in that, give me a call, meetingspodcast@gmail.com. We also have a call-in service is how it works. I can tell you more about it later on, but it's really, really good, and people are enjoying it. So I'm hoping to start getting interviewing some people about it for the podcast here, the Meetings podcast, to see if it'd be neat if you can find new podcasts too. That's why I always try and ask people what podcasts they listen to, because podcasts are getting very popular, and it's really neat when you find a good one. So thank you again for listening. I appreciate you. Any questions or comments, hit me up at meetingspodcast@gmail.com. You can find me at grassshackroad.com. You can also find me on Twitter as M. McAllen. 2 M's there, McAllen. And that's it. Thank you. I appreciate you. Again, if you have a moment, can you head over to iTunes and leave us a review? That would be fantastic. We get a few people have been doing that lately, and that's really helping us to get found. So thank you. I appreciate you again, and I will see you next time. Bye.
We appreciate and thank you for listening to the Meetings Podcast. Please email with any questions or comments to meetingspodcast@gmail.com. Meetings Podcast is sponsored by IMEX America, America's worldwide exhibition for incentive travel, meetings, and events. The Meetings Podcast theme music is brought to you by the Delgado Brothers, which can be found at delgadobrothers.com.